What up, everyone? stooF here. Today I'm going to be doing a different kind of video. I'm going to be giving my thoughts on Brighter Shores after playing for 10 hours. I'm a little sad to say that it didn't really meet the expectations I had for it setting out, but I'm also happy to say that I think this game will be successful. In fact, I think it already is. It has mostly positive reviews on Steam, but I think it's got a good groundwork for a game that a lot of people will enjoy, especially people who like RuneScape. And I know a lot of people have compared this game to RuneScape, calling it RuneScape 3 or 4, comparing, these very similar icons to RuneScape, or maybe how some of the skills are pretty much the same, but that's just at first glance. After playing the game for a little bit now, I can tell you that it's got hints and notes of RuneScape, but it is its own game. There is a lot of differences here that are more apparent as you play. So I'm basically in this video gonna show you the progress I've made to this point, tell you what I like and don't like about each of these skills, and then next time I'll probably wrap things up with another video of doing the main story quest and kind of finishing the end of the free area. As you can see, I'm still pretty much where I left off after the first video. I haven't touched any quests. I have really only grinded. So these are where my stats are at right now. I've got guard to 15 because that's where I was capped at. I needed to hit 15 guard in total level 60. So I've exceeded 60. I'm at 74, so that's fine. So I will be able to move forward, but I did go ahead and try out each of the skills. Alchemy is still pretty low because I was using foraging to make a stock or a supply, and then I would use that to level alchemy. Although I do know how alchemy works, so I'll still be able to speak on it. This game does have a similar model to RuneScape, in the sense that there is some free areas and plenty of free hours to be had, but you will be locked out of certain zones, and those zones will only be accessible with a membership or a premium status. The subscription's around $6 a month, which is less than RuneScape and less than other MMOs, but with all the subscriptions that people pay for nowadays, people are not going to want to pay $6 a month extra to play this game in the current state it's in right now. I'm just going to be honest. But it is early access, and they do plan on definitely extending this game, and it's going to open up more. But what I want to do now is kind of point out the pros and the cons. So I'm going to start with a couple of the pros. Always start with the good, I think. So there's a couple systems in this game that I think are really interesting, that I haven't seen in other games, or I haven't seen much in other games if they are in other games. For example, this whole knowledge system. Anytime, well, originally it unlocks once you hit your first profession to level 20. Once you've done that, you can now accrue knowledge points. Basically, anytime you're skilling, whether it's cooking, fishing, or foraging, you're going to start getting these knowledge points. Once you hit 100, you'll get the point, and you are able to trade it in. Now, each one of your professions has certain levels required for like the next ability that you get through this knowledge point. So say you're in between those levels and you gain your knowledge point, but there's nothing to actually put it in yet because your skills haven't reached that point. Well, you can go ahead and convert it. You can either get a massive payout of EXP on one of your professions, or you can just convert it to straight up cash. Both are probably good options. I probably wouldn't go cash. I'd probably go experience. In these kind of games, it's a time sink, so this is really just a time saver more than anything. But when you do spend a point on one of these profession skills, what I found was, at least the level 20 ones so far, I've gotten the cooking one and the fisherman one, they unlock a passive offline skilling option where your character, for example, if you're fishing, as long as you have bait in the containers to hold the fish, your character will continue to fish even when you log out of the game until he's expended all of his bait. I find that pretty cool. I like that a lot. I kind of even wish RuneScape had that. It reminds me of a game I've played back in the day with Bender and Makosuji called Conquer Online, where they had a training ground where you could kind of log out and train and get experience there. So I don't know, just brought back some good memories for me. I think it's a cool system. And the experience gained isn't anything drastic, so it's not like you logging out and skilling is gonna have you be blasting through levels. It's really more of kind of like a substitution thing, or like a just to keep things rolling while you're offline. So I think that system's pretty cool. I enjoy that. Another thing I've noticed is it looks like these professions, based on what I've seen from my character and what I've seen online, it looks like these professions are tied to areas. So Hopeport has guard, chef, fisherman, forager, alchemist, maybe more, I'm not sure. But then it looks like, you know, those professions will only be done in Hopeport. I don't think you go to Hope Forest and you're going to be doing cooking or fishing there. From what I saw, there's woodcutting there and archery, and I don't really remember the other ones, but it does seem like in this game your skills will be tied to areas. So I'm not really sure if that's a good or a bad thing, but I do find it interesting. It is different, so that's cool. Another thing is I do like the mini map a bit better in this game than in RuneScape. You can really mess around with it, zoom in and out easier than in the RuneScape mini map. And the thing is you can click pretty far away, multiple screens away. So if I'm trying to get to the town square, I'm up here. I can kind of just be clicking my way there. My guy will run on his own. Pretty useful. When you do some of these skills, you will be running quite a bit, so it is nice to be able to move a bit easier. So here we are now in front of the area where you level the profession cooking. Cooking is probably the number one thing in this game that I have a problem with. At the moment, it is completely meaningless for the player. It makes sense to level it in the game because it looks like you're going to get to these points where you're hard capped and you need a certain total level to move forward. So eventually you're going to have to level cooking to, you know, to help you supplement and meet that level. But at this point right now, none of the food you cook can be eaten by your character to gain any sort of buff, heal, you know, cure a status, anything like that. The food is not eaten, it is merely sold to the head chef inside the area. Now, basically all that means is cooking is just a money-making method, really. And the problem with that is it's not even the fastest money-making method from what I understand at this point. It seems like fishing right now, or maybe alchemist later on, is faster. So, not really sure what he was thinking with cooking. I think it definitely needs some work. I think he could easily make this better by at least making some of the meals consumable. And then, you know, then you have something to work towards. Because right now, all you're doing is leveling up and then just changing ingredients and cooking something else. And at the end of the day, it's the same thing. And the way the whole process works is, you know, you either have your own materials, which you get through foraging or whatever, or you just go to this guy, Kevin, and you trade. And he's got everything you need laid out. And sometimes it'll even tell you exactly what it's for over here, even if you forget. So for example, I'll buy like 10 mixed vegetables. So all you do is you're gonna run into this restaurant here, to the back, into the kitchen. And you're gonna prepare the food and cook it for an EXP payout, you know, like usual, as you'd expect. And then you just sell it to the chef. Then you're done, and you rinse and repeat. So the way this works is you usually have to go to one of these stations, and you're going to prepare the food. And that's not actually going to give you an experience yield. But once you've turned your ingredients into like prepared ingredients, the next step generally will give you the experience. These stations are aesthetically different. He's flipping a frying pan, you know, he's over there cooking over the coals, or there's an oven, you know, you're chopping or you're rolling, but it's all the same. They all take the same exact interval of time. When you make anything, so I'm going to use my prepared vegetables here. When I go to make it, it's the same yellow circle that loads up every time. It's everything takes the same amount of time. It's really just a difference of money for your ingredients and your EXP payout. You want to pay more money and get a little bit faster experience, or do you want to pay a little bit less money and, you know, you're not losing any money, because by the time you sell the ingredients back to the head chef, you're pretty much back where you started. So you can kind of infinitely cook once you have a small amount of money. All right, and now that we're done, he's just always kind of standing somewhere around here. You sell him the items, and boom. So that's another big difference from this game and RuneScape, and it's not even necessarily a bad thing. I guess it depends person to person on your opinion, but there isn't really a player-driven economy at this point. It's more like, you know, sell items to NPCs for a payout. There's not really much to say about the alchemist station. It's pretty much the same idea as cooking. These are all different stations in which you prepare the reagents and then you bottle them over here. They're mostly aesthetic. At the end of the day, they all pretty much take the same exact time. You're just using your different ingredients and you're getting like a potion of a higher quality or a different potion. But the one thing I don't really like when it comes to doing any profession in this game, including alchemists, is these bank systems. There's a potion bank and a regent bank. Over in the cooking house, there's an ingredient bank. And when you open these up, they're not like a central bank that has all your items. Everything is split up. And to me, that's really just a time waster. I don't see any point in having them all be different banks. When it comes to cooking, it's not really a hot take. I think many people will come to the same conclusion that it's mostly meaningless. When it comes to alchemists, it is less meaningless because the potions are actually consumable and will heal you. Although I do have to say, my alchemist is low. I understand I don't have higher potions, and I understand with higher potions comes higher healing. But at the moment, if I were to drink a potion in combat, it takes my character so long to drink a potion that he basically will take 1 or 2 hits while he's drinking that potion, which essentially just nullifies what I've just healed. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run over and attack a goblin real quick. I can kind of just show you that you're gonna be taking about 2 ticks of damage as you're drinking this potion. And if you're using the level 1 potions, it's pointless. So I'm sure the better potions that are more potent, you'll take a couple hits as you're drinking it, but the heal is much greater, so it's not gonna be as much of a problem. But early game potions seem a bit ridiculous. So let me attack this guy. Alright, we'll let him get a couple hits on me. Alright, so I'm gonna pop the potion. He uncorks it, takes a sip, and as you see, by the time I did it, I took 2 hits and he was already halfway to his 3rd hit. So the payoff is not there at all. 1, 2. So he hit me for 16, which was more than what I healed. A bit crazy. One thing I do like, though, is the spell system they have, which is different than RuneScape, of course. We don't need runes. There's no mana to use it. There's not even really cooldowns. But they all have their own points. Sense does exactly what you think. It's going to show you everything on a map. So that's useful when you're foraging or fishing or something like that. Quartermaster lets you open up the Quartermaster's Bank, which is more like a central bank like RuneScape, but it is just for equipment. And there's equipment per area. So it's a bit weird. It's still split up. The other spell that is interesting is Immunity. This will allow you to make your character immune from getting aggroed. You can even do this in combat. It takes a little bit, so you gotta be careful you don't die, and it will allow you to escape combat. Or otherwise, you can cast it and then walk through maps, and you won't get aggroed at all. I really like this system because there's times where getting aggroed is fun because you're trying to get some experience or drops, and then there's other times where you're just trying to get where you're going, and getting aggroed is so annoying. So I do think this was a great idea, and I hope there's more very useful spells like that. You know, because it looks like there's at least 4 more for now that I'll have to get in the next area, which again kind of looks like we're getting about 4 spells per area, perhaps. All right, next I'd like to talk about fishing. Fishing is another skill that I'm a little disappointed with. I don't think it completely misses the mark like cooking does, because fishing is, at the end of the day, just a moneymaker in this, and it's much faster than cooking, or some of these fish end up even being used in cooking, so it makes you money and or it can fuel another skill, so it's not really useless. There's a couple maps, not a couple maps, there's like a handful of maps you can fish on, right? So my character's here right now where there's eels, but there's also puffer fish right nearby near this bridge. There's also fish all along the pier and along the beach, okay? But the main fish that you're going to be catching at first are these eels and puffer fish. And the thing that's different about them in this game is if you right click them and look and click past action, you can see there's level 2 eels, 8, and 16. Now, when I started the game, there was level 2 eels here, but when you hit level 8, the eels here kind of like level up with you, and you're catching higher level eels. Same thing when I hit 16, and it looks like, you know, it's going to keep going on and on until I hit 323, which is kind of a crazy max level. But the thing that's a little disappointing about that is, like, it feels a little cheap because there's no difference in time to catch them. They're both the same. So watch, I'm going to show you. I'm going to catch a level 2 eel. Right? Then I'm going to catch a level 8 eel. Pretty much the same amount of time, right? Now let's catch a level 16 eel. So it's just like, instead of making more zones with different fish spread out, these fish just evolve, and it's the same action, and it's the same amount of time, but the numbers are just higher. So even for kind of like a mindless grind, like a mindless grind game like this, or even like RuneScape, it feels a little cheap for some reason. I don't know. Especially because if you just walk one map this way, there's the fishmonger right here that you can sell to. So you literally just spear fish and come over here and get a quick payout. And it's as easy as that, and that's why that is much faster money making than cooking. Another interesting thing is these fish seem to be client side and not server side. So, you know, even though I'm catching this fish on my screen, the other guy on his screen has his 3 fish on their, you know, respawn timers according to him. I think this is good and bad, right? Because this is a great idea to defeat the pressure of bots, because when bots enter a game like this, which is inevitably going to happen in a game like this, and in most games, but especially in a game like this, you have to fight for resources with fucking bots, and it's like one of the worst things in the world. I remember old school RuneScape sucked for that. You'd be world hopping trying to mine or woodcut, and there's like 17 stock looking characters all mining with crazy numbers in their names, all clearly bots, right? So in this one, you don't really ever have to worry about fighting for resources with other players. But it makes it feel weird in a way. Kind of like disconnects you. If it's supposed to, I feel like it's supposed to be a social thing, because now it's got us all together in this one map instead of having us all spread out. Like, oh, high level fish are over there, so only noobs are on this map. I think that was probably the intent of having these fish level up with you. But because they level up with you, and because they're on your client and not like the server and being the supplies and being shared between you and other characters, something just feels bad about that to me. And I don't know why, because I feel like it probably shouldn't, but it makes the server feel more alive when you're battling for resources with other players. So that's another small thing. But with fishing, I think it's much better than cooking or even alchemist, really, so far. And it could be improved. It's not the worst in the world. So for foraging, you pretty much want to go to any of these green maps, or on the, initially you start on the beach, which is where you gather most of your starter stuff, which is like kelp and shells. Then eventually you start gathering stuff like plants and vegetables, which you use for cooking, and the first things I mentioned, like the plants and kelp, you're going to be using as regions for your alchemy. So foraging is one of the most useful skills at the moment, because it fuels 2 other skills completely. But the one downside I think to foraging now is, if you want to deposit your foraged materials into a bank, you have to walk from any one of these maps all the way up and go to here, to either the cooking place or to the apothecary, and that's where you're going to be able to deposit them. So while it is kind of the most useful, it also has the longest run back time to deposit your stuff. So it is the one I'm working on now. It's 13. I kind of plan to get each one of these skills to 20 and then go back in and finish the quest, but it is taking the longest because I have to run the farthest. So there is that. Most of the time you'll come into one of these maps and you'll kind of just click sense, and you'll be able to see immediately where you need to go. So for me, I would start gathering these pond weeds, and there's plenty of them here. So, you know, you don't really have to run too far while gathering. It's just really the run back that kind of sucks. And there's also other things like potatoes and stuff on other maps. And that's basically the gist of foraging. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts after playing about 10 hours of Brighter Shores. I still need to do more combat before I kind of have a more refined opinion on that. Right now, it seems pretty standard. I don't really have a problem with it. It does seem like there's going to be special attacks and maybe even like specialized gear. It looks like I have to pick a faction or something like that, so that could be cool. But for now, just kind of giving my thoughts on the skills and the overall idea of the game as a whole after playing for about 10 hours. I do still plan to finish the rest of the quests, but realistically, if you came from RuneScape expecting to play this game and having it be another RuneScape for you, you're probably going to be slightly disappointed. Some people are probably going to love this and not really put too much thought into it, but if you are someone who, you know, PKs or does a lot of player trading, at this point in the game, it's not really for you. Although I do believe I read that PKing is definitely coming, and I'm sure there'll be some sort of trading in the future too. So these are more of early access problems and not an overall game problem as a whole. But that's that. That's my thoughts. Thank you very much for watching. If you made it this far, please consider liking, commenting, or subscribing, or even sharing. But if you don't want to, don't worry, there's no pressure. With that, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.